Okay, in the most recent video, I did examples where there are already common denominators, and then maybe another couple examples where it was relatively easy to make common denominators. So here are a couple of examples where it's a little harder than the ones I did yesterday. So hopefully, after watching yesterday's and today's, you'll be able to handle these more challenging problems. All right, so you gotta find common denominators, and so that always amounts to figuring out how do you make the numbers the same and how you make the variables the same in both. And so for this one, what you have to do is you have to factor. You have to see what factors there are. So this is just 2 and 3 for this guy, for the 6. And this is just 3 and 3. Okay. 3 and 3. All right. So the common denominator, the least common denominator, I'll just actually write it out. LCD, I'll write it out over here. I'll abbreviate it over here, I should say. Is going to need a 2. Because this guy has a 2 in it. It's going to need a 3. And then you can't just, this has only 3's over here. Okay? But you need at least as many in the least common denominator as any single denominator has. So this guy has 2, oops. So you better have at least 2 in the least common denominator. So we need a second 3, okay? And then, I'm going to erase the numbers because I'm going to talk about the variables then. Boom, okay? So the number part, in fact, I'll even write it out, even though we're not done yet, hold on, is going to be, the number part of the LCD is 18. Okay? This guy has an X, so this guy better have an X. So we need an X. This guy has a Y, so this guy better have a Y. Y. Oops. 18XY. Okay? So then what you have to think about is what we've thought about in previous lessons, and I mean really the whole reason why we did that stuff is to prepare you for this. You got to figure out how to go from 6x to the 18xy, and then also how to go from the 9y to the 18xy. Alright, so over here we have to times, well, to go from 6 to 18 we need a 3. I cannot write 3's apparently with this thing. And to go from x to xy, we better have an x. So this might be confusing looking, so let me redo it. But we got to multiply by 3y is what I'm trying to communicate there, so let me fix that. But got to multiply by 3y on this one. So times 3y. So 6x times 3y will give you 18xy. You're trying to build to that common denominator. So that's what's going on there. This guy, to go from 9 to 18, we got to multiply by 2. And to go from y to xy, we better multiply by x. Okay? Thing is, we got to do it to both fractions, or both the numerator and denominator in both fractions. So let me actually clone this and actually do that here. So what's that mean? We better go. I actually probably want to make this even a little bigger. So we're going to have a 3y on top, 3y on bottom. Okay, multiply, this fraction gets multiplied by 3y. This fraction gets multiplied by 2x, so I do that. In fact, yeah, I should actually draw it as a fraction. So we really are multiplying a fraction times a fraction. And as we've talked about, when you multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. So this becomes 15y over 18xy minus this. Okay. Okay, so now we have the situation like we've done in class, like we did in the video yesterday. Same denominators, you can just subtract them now. All right, resist the urge to try to simplify these. All right, it's good to have that kind of instinct because that's stuff we've been doing. If you did that, if you simplify these like we have done early in the chapter, that's going to just undo exactly what we just did. It's going to go the opposite direction. So do not do that, right? Despite, perhaps you might have the instinct to do that. Then, now's the easy part. Hard part is done. You actually just subtract them, and so you get 15y minus 4x over the 18xy. No big deal. All right, that part's the easy part. You subtract the numerators, leave the denominators, leave those common denominators the same. It's got to be the same throughout. You got to look to see if you can factor cancel here. I just made this problem up, so it's not. Sometimes, a lot of times the book, it works out perfectly, and you can can't reduce the answer. Here you can't, and I just made this one up. Okay, you try to. There's no GCF in the numerator. There's no factoring you can do in the numerator, so there's nothing to simplify. All right, so let's go to this harder one. Before you can try to figure out the LCD in this harder one, you have to factor the denominators, right? You have to. Here it's kind of, well, we did that actually. We factored the other problem. It was just 2 times 3 times x over here, 3 times 3 times y. Relatively easy to figure out the factor for those. This is harder, right? And so I'm gonna move this up a little bit. So to that with these, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. You factor the denominators like we've done recently a bunch. All right, so hopefully you guys are getting to be excellent at this because we've just been doing it over and over and over again. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but this is x plus 2x minus 2. Okay, that one hopefully is pretty easy. I hope. Okay, that's stuff that we've definitely been doing. So I just kind of put it underneath, and then I should probably change colors because it's getting too messy. This one is, you can factor whatever technique you want. This is x minus 5, x plus 2. Okay, so, oh no, separated. Okay, boom. So what that means is, I almost just want to type. Writings. I'm bad at the writing. Now whatever, let's make it blue and smaller. The LCD, what is it? Well, you need to include whatever factors you see in either of the denominators. So we're going to have an x plus 2. Okay, because it's right there, boom, x plus 2. We're going to have a x minus 2. Okay, over here, we're going to need an x minus 5. And we're going to need an x, well, we already have, in this denominator, we have a single x plus 2. In this denominator, we have a single x plus 2. We don't need a second one, it's already taken care of. Okay? And so this was coming from the purpley guy. I'll color coordinate it. That was good. I guess. Alright, so there we go. Now what do we do with that? Well, that means that here, for this part, we better multiply the top and bottom. We're going to need, here we're going to need the x multiplied minus 5. Oh, I almost want to cheat. I'm tired of writing with this thing. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Let's copy. So to make this guy have the x minus 5, I better multiply top and bottom by x minus 5. We got to put that in there. Okay? Okay? And then same thing here. Here we have the two, the x minus 5 and the x plus 2. We need the x minus 2. It's missing. So we multiply by top and bottom. No, it doesn't keep the formatting. That's annoying. X minus 2 over x minus 2. Okay? Okay, so that's what we do here and here. Alright? I'm going to write it out. I will write it out like the least common denominator. Alright? I will write out as if it's factored, because that's kind of better. All right. It's better, well, you see right in a second, potentially. All right, so x minus 5, and this is, oops, got a pen? I do. So this is, over here, 2 times x minus 5, so 2x minus 10. You really do need to do that. You need to actually distribute the 2. So x minus 5 times 2. Okay, and then at the bottom, you have x minus 5. The x plus 2 and the x minus 2. Okay, so that's what I would write it out factored. I'm going to put the parentheses here in a second. Here we go, boom, boom. Okay? So, it might be a little confusing potentially here, but hopefully not. Okay, so that's the least common denominator, right? It's in a different order, but it's x plus 2, x plus 2, x minus 2, x minus 2, x minus 5, x minus 5. All right, and then we do a plus, same thing. All right, I'm going to cheat. Well, hold on. So we do x minus 2 times 5, so it's 5x minus 10. Okay. And then, hold on, I'm going to pause because I feel like I'm running a little low on time. I'm going to just complete. Alright, so I cheat a little bit, make it a little bit prettier. I wanted to emphasize the fact that this is the least common denominator. It was only partially factored up in this previous step, but I mean, might as well write it as the factored least common denominator format. I think is a little bit better. Okay. There we go. And so now we just add. We just do the stuff we did already. The type of thing we've already done where we have common denominators. So it's 7x minus 20 all over, and then might as well cheat again, all over this sucker. And then there we go. Now, okay, I say that, but we're not done. We're done, but not really. We have to make sure we're done before we call it a day. But you try to factor the numerator, and you can't. There's no factoring. So you always got to look and see if you can factor and then cross stuff out. Okay? And a lot of the problems today, it worked out like that, that you did today in class. And then, in previous sections it works out like that sometimes. Here you can't. If you look at the numerator, there is no GCF. There's no special tricks to use to factor the top. So that's a prime polynomial if you want to use that term again. And so we're done. So hopefully that's helpful for the ones that have a lot of extra work to do. These are challenging. We'll probably talk about it more in class. But hopefully this is a good start.